Hi, everyone. Today we have on Miss Sue Ann. Could you go ahead and start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So right now I'm an assistant professor at Auburn University in electrical and computer engineering, specializing in machine learning and cybersecurity, which is actually really fun because I did my undergraduate at Auburn. So it's really great to be back, just in a completely different capacity. But yeah, I love doing stuff with computers and circuits. So it's been a good fit. It's really fun.
So, after you graduated from Auburn, what degree did you obtain there?
So I did a wireless degree and then also a wireless engineering degree and also a computer engineering degree. Because I figured out if I did them both at the same time, because I had a scholarship, so I was like, I have 4 years, get as much class in as possible while it's free. And so I managed to get two out of it. Um,
So, back to the scholarship thing, real
oh yeah.
fast. Were you an in-state student or was that okay?
Oh yeah, I was in state. I'm from North Alabama area, close enough to Huntsville that all of the Rocket City stuff rubbed off on me as a kid, and that's kind of where I got the engineering idea from. Is I originally wanted to be an astronaut, and so when I did engineering, actually I did when I did the electrical and computer engineering, I thought an electrical engineer was the person who wires your house. That's an electrician. That is not the same. And it took me like they was going to these classes. I was like, oh, surely they'll get to like the house wiring part eventually. And I was partway through like my second semester, and I was like, oh, they're never. It's not going to come up, is it? That's a different thing. And I was like, well, I'm here already. It's too late. Like I might as well finish it. And then I ended up getting the master's and the doctorate. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna, it's stuck. It was nice. It worked out well.
So, how many years were you in school for to obtain all that?
Um, let's see, started December 2012 and finished actually March 2020, which was, the best time to be doing anything. Um, Start of pandemic. It was a week before the state shut down. I finished. So that would be, oh, now 4.5 plus maybe 3. So yeah, 7.5 years.
Okay. And
Do
so,
all.
after you graduated, did you get a job? What did that look like?
It's so I continuing the like with the scholarship for undergrad, and I was determined. I made a promise to myself as long as school was free, I would keep doing it. And so I actually worked full time through my master's and doctorate up at University of Alabama Huntsville.
Oh
So
my
I worked
gosh.
after the first few months I was a graduate assistant for their lab, and then I got hired full time. So if you work full time for the university up there, you get a certain number of free classes. So I stayed at that job for a little while. Pandemic really shook everything up, and then there was a opening down here at Auburn for a visiting professor, and then they had an opening. It was one of those like, if I can just wait it out, I know they've got an opening that I can apply for soon for like a full like tenure track job. And after about 6 months, that did open up. And then I ended up getting it, which was great because I'd already lived down
Awesome.
here. So like, hopefully I get this because I just bought a house. I did things very backwards, but it worked out.
So, did you know you wanted to go into teaching, or were you looking at different options in the field?
So I have a weird story in that teaching was I don't say backup plan. Like I love it. And it was my backup plan for a reason. But I started out, I mentioned Rocket City, wanted to be an astronaut about a week or two before my last set of finals in grad school. I was diagnosed with heart failure.
Oh my gosh.
And that disqualifies you from any of the astronaut corps for obvious reasons, because you have to be able to do a lot of the cardio, especially in space, because the way your muscles will degrade if you don't
Mhm.
exercise. So I had always joked, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll just be a professor. It'll be fun. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, I better actually do this. And the good thing is because I already worked full time at the university, I had done some teaching already and I knew
Mhm.
I liked it. So, and I worked in a research center. So because being a professor, like half of your job is teaching and the other half is research. It's like, well, I have experience in both and I know I like both. So I guess I'll stay with it. But it was very much a backup plan that worked out really well. Um,
So, what does your day to day look like as a professor?
so I think part of why I love the job is it is a little different every day because you never know what crazy things students are going to do. Um, It's one of those, like, especially because I teach sophomores, so you've got like the very late teenagers, like 19-year-olds, like,
Mhm.
I'm an adult, I've been out of my parents' house for a year, I can do anything except this, help please. So you see a lot of that. So I would meetings with students either for a mentorship or working on like writing a paper about a research project, which I myself spend some time just staring at a screen, working on a research project, writing code, and then also preparing for class and then actually teaching. Because I teach one class a semester. So that's maybe 3 hours a week that I'm actually in the classroom teaching, which is kind of funny because as a student, I was like, what do professors do if they're not in the classroom? Are
Yeah.
they just sitting there? And there's so much more to it with meetings, and there's different committees. Like right now, we've got one committee I'm on looking at like how did COVID impact learning in terms of going virtual and then now coming back, like how can
Mhm.
we help students through that. There's a lot more email answering than I expected. I did not expect the number of emails you get in a day, especially the week before finals week. It's a lot of oh no, my final project isn't working type emails. So I'll just go and I'll just sit in our computer lab and just sit for like an hour and a half with the students and just talk everybody through like debugging their code and just figure out like, okay, it's a new puzzle, how do I solve this, like this person did it this way, where's the issue? And
Mhm.
I really enjoyed that part of the job. Okay, there's an issue, no one knows what, like I don't say there's no right answer, but it's not like somebody's testing you, it's you have to figure it out, and you never know day to day what that issue is going to be.
So is your class more applicable, like hands-on activities?
Yes. So it's computer systems, and it's how does a processor work, just known as most basic levels, and then coding in assembly language, which is the most basic of take these numbers, put this in this specific address. It's we call it a lower level language. If you hear about like Java, Python, C++, like those are the higher level ones. And this is all of those can get broken down into assembly. So it's a lot of like kind of wrapping your mind around like, okay, I'm used to typing this, but when I type that, what's the processor actually
Mhm.
doing? And that idea of having to break down everything into uh, more specific
Yeah.
steps, and that's really fun to teach because you're trying to teaching a way of thinking, but then also the hands-on side of you're actually writing the code. We have little boards. I wish I had thought to bring one to show, but they have a bunch of LEDs and buttons, and so you can actually watch. Oh, I need this to light up, and lights will spin, or press the button and this happens. So it's very hands-on, and I think you're more motivated when you see, like, a lot of my students are like, the first time that light comes on, it's so
Mhm.
exciting because it's like I did that. So it's I think it's a lot of fun just seeing people make those connections.
So as a professor, do you get, I'm assuming, a lot of people from a lot of different degrees and you kind of have to see where they're at, or is it you're just teaching the class and they're gonna?
Oh, there's a lot of different backgrounds. So we have like the prerequisite classes that you have to get through to get to
Mhm.
mine, but there's a little variety, especially for the class I'm teaching now, in terms of what programming languages they've done before. So I can't just say, oh, here's an example in this language. You've all seen this before. There's no commonality. So yeah, meeting people where they're at to kind of catch some people up. And some people, of course, are like, oh yeah, I learned this in middle school. We did programming. And which I'm super jealous of. I was like, I never got to learn programming in middle school. Like, where do you go to school? And then some of them are like, yeah, I think I took a programming class 2 years ago, but I don't remember. And so the wide variety. This one, they're all computer or electrical or wireless engineers. So like in our department, but I've taught other classes where we have people from other departments, and that's really fun with figuring out um, how to make it applicable to what they're doing too. Because I always want it to be not just, oh, I learned this,
Yeah.
what am I going to do with it, but make it where you can see yourself using at least something you learned in your
Mhm.
future career. Which the more backgrounds you're working with, and the more people and the more majors, then the more you kind of have to figure out, okay, this is how it'll apply to you, this is how it'll apply to you, and getting that motivation in, which means you have to be very confident that what you're doing is exciting. Like you have to be very enthusiastic, because otherwise, if I don't seem excited, then they're not
Then
going
yeah.
to either.
So do you said you teach one class. Is that normal for professors or can that change?
It changes even within like my career. So I'm in my first year of full time. So first year full time, you do one class in spring, one in fall, and then I think second year is the same. So they don't want to like overwhelm you with the
Mhm.
teaching part. And then after that, it goes 2 and 2. And you can teach in summers like if you want to. That's kind of optional. A lot of people focus on the research side. because I think I mentioned having to write a lot, but some of it is you have to get grants. So a lot of the research that you do, some of it like Auburn will just fund, but a lot of it you write to like the National Science Foundation or NIH, the Institute for Health,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, hey, this is something I want to work on. Or a lot of them, it can be Department of Defense, like the Army, Air Force, all the branches of service branches. They'll have projects that they're like, hey, we want someone to figure out how to do this. And so you just write saying, here's how I would approach it. Here's how much it would cost. Please fund me, please. We joke and we're like, oh, we got to beg for money today. And that's pretty common. So for university, so the first 2 years you focus more on that, because once you get the funding kind of coming in, then you've got more time to do the teaching.
So what's an example of a research project you've gotten to start or kind of work on?
So we've got one, I guess more fun sounding hands-on one, because some of them are just really like machine learning, technical jargony. Like it's cool, but the one that I can kind of show off more than just like pictures on a screen, we're building the Tumors Corner intersection in Auburn as a tabletop model with all the controllers to do all the lights. And then we're going to show like, this is how you would program this. This is how you want to check for like vulnerabilities. This is what could go wrong, because traffic light systems, they're computers and therefore are hackable. And then I'm actually going to teach a class in the fall, just a small, like 6 people or so hands-on group, where we're going to play with that model and see like, changing this in the code, what can that do to the traffic lights, like safety, if you were programming this, what would you do to try to protect it? And that's all grant funded, like it's research, because then I'm going to write about how like this hands-on model helped in teaching, this hands-on model, helped my students better comprehend this. But that like it counts as research. So that's a funner one to see, because you actually have like the intersection modeled with little traffic lights.
That's awesome. So when you do research projects, are you required to do a certain amount every year, or is it something you take on yourself as a professor?
They give you like your I don't remember what it's called, like an assignment. So mine's right now 25% teaching, 10% service outreach, and then 65% research.
Oh my gosh.
So that was just like a time breakdown. But in terms of like, there's no set dollar amount, like bring in this much grant money or, write this many papers, because it varies so much based on like, that's my first year. I obviously like my first month wasn't like, oh yeah, here's all this stuff I can write about, because nothing has happened yet. So they don't give you strict numbers, but they do tell you, approximation of how your day or week should break down. Because like the days I teach, obviously that's when I'm putting more effort into teaching, which right now is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So like Tuesday and Thursday, it's almost all, research, writing, meeting with my lab students, that kind of thing.
So do you get to shadow somebody when you're going through this new professor, like year versus having to do it all by yourself, someone that can guide you?
It's very like unofficial. So there are some programs where you can go and have like, this is my dedicated mentor. But for me, because I went to Auburn, like I only graduated undergrad in 2016. So like my professors that taught me are still there. So I've been able to do like an unofficial thing where they all know me, and they tell me, and they're quite honest, like, yep, today, some days you're just going to have to sit there and just stare at a screen for 8 hours, and it's not going to be the most fun, because you just have to write this and get it done. Or they'll tell you, hey, if you need to figure out this thing, like here are the people you should talk to. So there's no, at least the way we're doing it, like in my department, there's no official shadowing, but I've got on my hallway, all of the like more computery side of our department are all in my hallway. So it's just, I've got this whole array of people I can go down and ask, hey, who do I talk to for this? Or, am I taking the right approach with this? And what would you do if a student came to you with this problem? So it's unofficial, but it's a really good support system.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice to a girl who would want to go into either like teaching at a college level or into engineering in general?
So I found out recently my department, electrical computer engineering specifically, has one of the worst gender ratios. And I would say don't be discouraged by that. Which I realize is probably advice you get for a lot of careers, is just don't be discouraged by it. But it's one of those, you look around and you don't see anyone that looks like you, but don't underestimate like how much of an impact you can have. Because I know, like for me, just I'm in my first year of full time, I know of at least 2 or 3 female students who have had me and then have wanted to either stay in or have switched into our department, because they're like, oh, we see someone that's been through this before. and who is very vocal about it. And I even like my male students, I'll tell them like, hey, this is the thing that happened to me in undergrad. Like somebody, was rude about this, and because I was the only girl, and they were like, oh, we don't want to hang out with you, and that wasn't great. So make sure you don't do that. Like I'm really vocal about it. So don't be afraid to speak up about it, even if you're like the only one.
So when you were going through your education, you said you saw that gender gap. Were there any setbacks because of that, or did you just keep your focus on this is what I'm doing and I'm going to get through it?
A little bit. Like it's easy for me, like in hindsight, to be like, well, yeah, I made it through, so it's fine. But I know at the time there were definitely, I worked in IT, was one of my jobs because I was on scholarship, but I still had to, eat. So I had a part-time job, and I was working in IT on campus. And there was someone who called in, and all I got through was just, thank you for calling help desk. This is my name, and can I help you? And their first thing they said was, is there a man there that can fix my computer? And I was just so shocked that somebody just blatantly said it. And I considered like quitting my job. I considered changing careers. And I just honestly, I just went home and cried about it. And I was just like, and I talked to a bunch of my friends. I was like, this is really discouraging. What I didn't even get to, like, normally it was like, they didn't even have a reason. Like they didn't know me.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, they've been in class with me and then they've decided I don't know what I'm doing, which that never happened to me. But it was like, this is a complete stranger. And so I had a few moments like that. And so my friends were just like, yeah, that's, it was one of those, I'd worked there for 2 years and only happened once. It's like, these people are few and far and in between. They're rude, but it's not going to be everybody. And so having to learn to shrug it off, like it'd be better if it didn't happen, but having to learn to shrug it off, like that took me a year or two, for sure, to kind of get used to, because it was, once or twice a semester, someone would make a comment. I got one once about like, oh, you, it was like in a lab, and they were just like, oh, well, of course they had to give you an A. They can't fail the girl.
Oh.
And a week or two later, that same guy was asking me for help with his homework, and I was like, can't help you. Like, what do you know? Can't help you. And now the lab that happened in, my office is across the hallway from it now, and it's just like, I now grade things for that lab. It's like, oh, look at this. I have no idea what happened to the person who said that. Like, I'll not make an effort to like keep in contact with them, but it's like, I turned out okay, so it's fine. So yeah, people will be mean, but I had to learn to shrug it off, and it is not an easy process sometimes to learn to shrug it off.
That's a great thing to do, though. It does take a while. So have you seen a growth like in the people you're teaching, like seeing more girls than when you were in college, or not yet?
About the same. Well, so for my department, about the same. I would say like engineering wide, I would say it's definitely gotten a lot better. But my department, it's just been a slower growth. Just, I guess, well, because I've only been graduated a little over 5 years. It was December 2016. So yeah, 5 years and a few months. So it's one of those, I've not had as much time, but I've definitely feel like, I mean, we're talking, when I graduated the wireless degree, I was in little statistics for it. They had the male and female breakdown for each, and I was the only tally mark for one of my majors. So the fact that it's more than one, so I guess, yeah, there's improvement. It's just not anywhere close to equal, but it's like slowly getting there.
So this might be a very hard question, but what do you think we could do to help more girls think of that as a possibility for a career?
I think it's a visibility thing, because that was something that did intimidate me in terms of, well, like I said, I didn't know what electrical engineering was. I thought it was wiring houses. So just being with like those, like the STEM days where you go out to even elementary, middle, high schools, just even if it's not, hey, you should do this career, just, hey, this career exists, is definitely a big part of it. And just the visibility of, I kind of mentioned, like seeing someone that looks like you. And I feel like that's true of all of the diversity initiatives. It's not just saying, hey, you can do this. It's, hey, you can do this. Here are people who have. Wow. And I think that's something that I feel like Auburn's been doing a really good job of recently. Because I've been involved in some of it, and I've seen the people firsthand doing, a lot of effort of, they call it Engineering Together. They actually just they got a new campaign essentially for that. And I think it's definitely doing what it's supposed to do, in terms of seeing people that look like you, and you're like, okay, maybe I should stay in this major, because it's not just for insert group, it's not just for men, or you can feel like you belong.
That's exactly what the purpose of my series is, to just get to see like, hey, these are people who are doing it and who are successful. And that's because I read a statistic few months ago, not even that long ago, that was saying how by age 4, girls already know what careers they can do and what they can't do. And it's all about their surroundings and seeing coloring books, their parents, just hearing people talk about it, because you see so much like, oh, here's my teacher, she's a woman, or here's a firefighter, he's a man, like, and so they get in their heads. But if we can help show them from a young age, like, hey, look at all the possibilities, then I think they are doing a better job with that now in schools, because I've gone to STEM Fest to talk to people and I've seen all the different possibilities that kids are getting to see and get to like be interactive with, which I really like. Before I hop off with you today, are there any more resources you might think of sharing, or you got pretty good scholarship, so anything advice you have for that?
Well, scholarship wise, definitely apply for everything. Even one of my friends, I remember in college, was like, oh, I don't want to do this because it's going to take so long. Like, oh, I'm gonna have to spend like an hour writing this essay. I was like, but if you win that scholarship, you just got paid $1,000 an hour to write an essay. And so like, when I had that frame of mind, it was like, oh, this is totally worth it. Just sit down for like one weekend, just apply to them. And a lot of colleges, they'll just have a website either where you can upload your resume and whatever reference letters, and it'll just automatically like parse through what you qualify for based on some questions. So it's a lot lower effort once you have the resume to just send it. And also they've got the like advisors on campus, they will answer like any like within reason any question. And like I don't call and be like, hey, I don't know how to cook chicken, like that, but any school questions, and give you just any kind of resource, because that's kind of a lot of it's major specific. So if you just say, hey, even if it's like, hey, I'm in middle school, tell me more about this. I know our department, there was an elementary school in California that they had to pick like a college and a major that they wanted to learn about. And there was this elementary school class that picked Auburn electrical engineering. And so we were just mailing them, here's some information. I think they saw like the basketball team, and then they were like, oh, electricity, that sounds cool, which that's what I'm saying. Like, it's one of those, they didn't really know what we did. It just sounded cool. So we sent them, here are some fun activities for like age appropriate. And they can, I mean, high schoolers, obviously they're probably not going to send you like coloring books. If you ask nicely, they probably would, but just contacting them and just saying, hey, I don't know much about this, but I saw on the website that, I saw this and this on the website. I just have questions. Like, they will gladly get you with, if you want to talk to current students or employees, anybody, just reach out to people, even if it's kind of weird to just kind of like cold call, like, hey, I don't know anybody. Everyone, like, that happens a lot in our jobs though. So like everyone's used to it. So it's not weird to us. So don't be afraid to do that.
That's great. Thank you so much for all the advice and for speaking with me today. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And to say, hopefully, like I said, people, I hope now our department does get calls because of this, of people asking. So yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.